go. All right. Don Ehlers. I teach general psychology at Northwest Missouri State University. Interesting, some of the stories that have been told and similarities that are there as well. I'm not Psych 101, I'm 103, just one less than you. And I have no idea how the numbering took place. But I'm going to talk about the effectiveness of the learning curve in general psychology because I've been doing it now since the fall of 2012. And it all came about, I need to contextualize how this all came to be. I taught as an adjunct instructor from the fall of 2009 until the end of the semester of fall 2011. It was in the summer of 2011, the university was doing a variety of reorganizing in terms of classrooms and just re-looking at how large enrollment classes could be maybe redesigned in a more effective, more efficient way. In general psychology, we were hiring, the department was hiring up to 3 adjuncts a semester and a couple of full-time professors to teach general psychology, so course drift was an issue. They were all teaching kind of their own way, and so that was one thing they wanted to do is bring it back together so there was a common sense of what was being taught in general psychology. When they first did the redesign, they hired somebody from outside the university to come in and do that, and I still taught a traditional adjunct section, well actually 3 sections myself, and then they were doing this redesign. For whatever reason, it really didn't work, and by the end of October, I was asked if I would kind of step in and salvage the relationships with the GA and the 2 adjuncts that were working then, and then in January of 2012, go full-time and try to redesign the redesign. And I was using a test-retest way of learning in my adjunct sections, giving practice exams and then giving exams, and I did that in that first redesign, and not really knowing how I was going to put to use the best time use of the adjuncts and the GA, and I went through that, and we did 4 sections of the redesign and 2 sections traditional, and we did a pre-test, post-test. And the pre-test, the traditional scored just a little higher than those students in my 4 sections. The post-test, my students scored a little higher than the traditional, but it wasn't statistically significant, and it was pitiful. I had never seen so. I was so disappointed in the outcome. And so it was in the summer of 2012, I was really re-looking at this, and I really moved toward a new look for it, and a learning curve came to my desk, and I talked to people here. I think it was Gail Yamazaki that I talked with that summer, and it got me very intrigued and excited about using learning curve. And so what I did is when I was teaching as an adjunct, one of the key things for me was to build relationship with the students. My belief was if we had a good relationship in the classroom, one-on-one with all the students, they're going to learn better. And that was an assumption I made. I didn't see any research really about it, but I believe that, and I think that was true. So in the new instructional structure, I wanted to keep that. Though I was going to have larger classrooms, it was going to be harder to do. Build relationships not only with the students, but with the instructional team, and so they were one and the same. I looked to the psychology textbook and saw that SQ3R was an effective study model. Well, I thought, why not use SQ3R as course delivery? If it works as a study model, can't we learn from that and use it as a course delivery? And then I want to get continuous feedback, analysis of learning curve, and analysis of course learning. That's what I want to cover today. So I build a team. We spend time together after getting the adjuncts hired in the fall. I'll spend significant time with them and my GA to get to know each other, to support each other, so they never feel alone. I never feel alone. And we meet every week before. You'll see that on Monday I'll use the word that we don't like to use, lecture, but it really doesn't look like lecture. And then they do the hands-on kind of work in Learning Lab. So we meet on Tuesday because I've already done Monday. They're going to do Wednesday. And during that meeting, first of all, we say, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? Things going well. But also then what we want to do is hear what they're planning on engaging the student in, because the adjuncts, I make clear, you're not teaching, you're engaging, but we all know that engaging is teaching. But I don't want them to think that they're responsible to give information. They're responsible to engage the student to somehow discuss and dig deeper into the information that I had presented. So we go over what they're doing, and it triggers me into saying, well, we covered this yesterday, but I missed this. Oh, by the way, this happened, but I got this feedback. So in section 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, we've got 6 sections of 80 to 85 students now. And so on building the team, that's important first. Then secondly, building relationships. When I said I didn't know any research on it, when I went to this model, I thought there's got to be something somewhere about building a relationship with students and what the importance of that is in the student, in the classroom. And this immediacy term came up. I'd never heard of it before, but it's exactly what I'm talking about. So if I wanted to have a one-on-one relationship with every student in my class and call them by name when I was an adjunct teaching 3 courses, 3 sections of about 45 students, at the end of the semester, I could call them by name. I did that. It was important for me to do. But now I have 6 sections of 80 to 85 students. And so the first time, that first fall that I had that, I talked to the students in the first row, the first section of the day, 9 o'clock, and I thought, you know, I can do this. I know their names. But then 10 o'clock, and then 11 o'clock, and then 12 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock came in. By the end of the day, my head was spinning. I didn't know what time of the day, nor the names anymore of those people. I thought, I can't do this. So the important thing for me to understand immediacy, it's the behavior that brings us closer in terms of perceived distance. So if they can feel like I know their names, so the classroom of these 80 to 85 students isn't in rows, it's in student groups, small tables, so I can walk the room, and as I'm lecturing, I'm in front of every student every day, looking them in the eye, depending on what part of the lecture I'm in, and I've got my PowerPoint going on every wall in the room, so I don't have to turn around ever to just check my point of reference as far as where I am. So I think that that's working for me in terms of perceived distance. I'm still disappointed that I can't do what I like to do. So the SQ3R model, what I do then is on the scanning, the question, the read, retrieve, review, you know, all know what SQ3R is. How can I have a course delivered in that way? Well, on Mondays then, I lecture like I just did. It's not standing up in front of in a podium. They don't know which is the front of the room and the back of the room because there really isn't any. But 6 times, once for all 6 sections, I scan the chapter. And I mean, I scan, I go fast. I want them to know what's in the chapter. I hear frustration, you're going so fast, I can't take notes. And I say, I'm really sorry, but don't take notes. Just pay attention and listen. Just listen, you know, see what you can do with that. And some students can respond to that. Some students, that's going to be a little frustrating, but I stay with that. And then the cue, that's Learning Lab. And so we've got small group going on. Instead of the 80 students in each class, when I initiated this, they redid the classroom. There were 2 classrooms. They took out the wall between and put in a retractable wall. So on Mondays, the wall's up. On Wednesdays, the wall's down, so we have 2 separate rooms, and each of the adjuncts is responsible for 6 sections of around 40 students in small groups where they're doing different kinds of small group activities, not lecturing, but it's engagement. And so that's the cue. Now we get to the 3 R's. We all know how this works. You know, the reading, that's up to the student. I can't force them. None of us can force them. I encourage. I don't say I expect. I say we really want. I really would hope that between Monday and Wednesday you'll read the information so that when you get to the small group work, you're going to be able to get involved. And then the retrieve review, we've got LearningCurve, how to use. Well, very similar to how we've heard it already, except with SQ3R, we're not in the classroom on Friday. It is LearningCurve. And that means that I assign it Thursday evening, and it's due by Sunday evening at 10. And they have all of the activities in every chapter. And as you alluded to, now it's gone from anywhere from 1 to 5 activities. It started out 2 to 4, I think, but now I had to double check myself when this edition came out, and it's 1 to 5. And I give, again, no grades for it, but I give 5 points for each activity they complete, not each chapter. So you can see there's a lot of points that are given throughout the semester when I use this particular model. And they see right away that it's a large part of the points. I have 5 exams. Also, I like what you said about the unit exams. We give 5 of those. 4 of them are online, and we've had a team conversation about this all the time. Well, they work together. It's not about assessment during the semester. It's about learning. And if they're working together, we use question pools as well. Each of them is getting more content to cover by helping each other than we would have alone. And conversational learning, as we know, is huge. We learn by hearing somebody else talk about it. So I've kind of butted up against more traditional faculty say, where's the assessment? Well, you know, they're learning. You know, I believe they're learning to do this. And I also did the final that way until this past year, and I really got, where's the assessment? How do we know? And so this year, I'll get to it, but I did a pre-test, post-test, and I could compare it then to the pilot, but I did a pre-test, post-test, both fall and spring this year. And so the learning curve, here it is, 5 points worth for completion of each activity. I also rely on continuous feedback. I want to know how the whole model's going, not just learning curve. And so anytime a student comes into my office or I talk to them in the classroom, I want to know, how are you feeling about the structure of the class? What do you think of learning curve? And I get a lot of just feedback informally in that way, nothing that I've written down. But then we have written evaluations, as all faculty, well, most faculty I presume do, and those written evaluations at the end are generally positive, and I say generally, not exclusively, generally positive, and the numerical evaluation, the thing that I can appreciate is it's significantly higher than the department average in terms of numerical evaluation. This is a general education course, large number of students. It seems to me that you have small students that you've come to know in the major area that maybe those, I would have a hard time beating that. And I'm thrilled that the numerical evaluations are definitely above the department average significantly and consistently. Never has there been a time that it hasn't been above. And so how do I analyze this? Well, I wanted to analyze learning curve. A couple years after we started, I had a GA who was great in doing a statistical look, and we wanted to, I said, we need to know for ourselves, is learning curve working? And so what we did is we simply took a look at the t-test and said, what does it look like in terms of average exam score, those who did all activities, versus average exam score for those who did less than all. And so that's just the comparison, is the average mean exam score of those who did less than all, and that's 0 to 99% of them, and you can see it's a significant difference there. And so we did that look, and I'm really looking at just the mean, that's all I wanted to know. And then I said, well, what about if we grouped, sort of like what we saw just earlier, if we grouped those who completed 0 to 33% of the activities, 34 to 66%, 67 to 99%, and 100%. I thought if it was working right and learning was taking place in average exam scores, it would be a stair step. It would make sense to me. And so we did that, the descriptives, and they're there, and I just wanted to look at the mean and the significance, which is very strong. And then I looked at the ANOVA graph, and I see that definitely significant difference. Those who are 0 to 33 expect to be, again, those low-achieving students, they haven't done the work. But then you move from here and you see the stair-step advantage of doing learning curve to its fullest extent. Now, what I'm also seeing here is that as I move along, I use this graph also first day of class. I say, look at what we can do. You do your learning curve activities. History says you're going to do better on exam scores. And so what I'm seeing is more and more students doing all of the activities. And so it's changing the data just a little bit. And yet, this is data that I've collected from the fall of 2012 until the end of this past semester. So to me, it's given us, we have now over 18,000 scores in that sample, and it's been consistent. It hasn't changed an iota over the time, but it strengthens, for me, it strengthens what I'm seeing. Now, also, analysis of the SQ3R completely as a total model, is their learning. So the pre-post, remember when I said that It was just pitiful that first semester. I was embarrassed to say I taught the class because it seemed like there was so little learning that took place. I looked at the pre-post test here, and we see the difference in terms of this model. Just this past semester, the fall semester was almost identical. I didn't include it in this, but it's almost identical. So in terms of the course learning and the overall model, I'm feeling some good reinforcement here to stay with. It isn't just LearningCurve. There are other things going on as well in terms of what the learning is that's there. So that's what I wanted to present today in terms of what the model is, and then, of course, the effectiveness of LearningCurve within that model.
Question.
Yes.
On your pre-test